I'm Stuart Crowley, the Global Content Manager at Close Still Media, and today I'm with Chris Knight. He's the Data Science and Analytics Manager within Digital at BT. And Chris is going to be a speaker at Big Data and AI World London on the 6th and 7th of March 2024 next year at Excel London. But today we're going to talk about Chris's life and career and his experience with being neurodivergent. So Chris, how has your experience been like being neurodivergent, and how has that influenced your approach to this quite excitingly growing world of data and AI?
Well, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so that's right. Being neurodivergent and working in data has been fantastic, actually. So the traditional elements of seeing data and using that to get to a business decision has been fantastic. But one of the things that I think makes it a little bit easier is the ability to spot patterns. And I would say that that's definitely a power of that. One of the things that is more difficult, and one of the things that I like to talk about within AI up until the recent explosion within generative AI is the context behind all of that data. So understanding the requirements, using a lot of the stuff that's written is very difficult. Being neurodiverse, I also have dyslexia, which means that reading for any length of time becomes quite difficult and challenging, especially when you're trying to put stuff across. And so you've done some analytics, you've understood the context of how things, and you want to be able to present that. So being able to get down on paper what you've got up here sometimes is difficult. So the explosion of that AI or use of AI now, and especially generative AI, means that I can put down in fumbled words what I'm trying to get across, and then have that completely rewritten for me in a way that makes sense to everybody is really important. One of the things that it does really, really well is takes traditional business language and then turns that into dyslexia-friendly language. So, not every word I will know, and not every word I will know how to spell properly or use in the right context. And sometimes, we've got spell checks on our Word or whatever you're using to as your word processor, but actually sometimes you can get it so wrong that it's a real word. It's just not the right word that you wanted. But so I would say that my approach to data and AI in general, having the background I've got, has been a difficult one over the last sort of 16 years. But like I said, with the explosion of generative AI now, I think most of those barriers have now been eliminated. And I think once the rest of the world catches up, and once we get a lot more companies using safely the generative AI, it will support and help other people who have also got similar backgrounds to myself.
I suppose it requires awareness of the power of data and AI to even implement something that is dyslexia friendly or neurodivergent friendly. Are there any pieces of advice that you would give to an organization to even be aware of that, to become more aware of that? Is it conversations like this that we need to be having more?
Oh, I think so. I think the more conversations that we can be having in the market around how we make sure that we are setting up our businesses to make sure we are truly inclusive of people who think differently, who have a different lived experience, a different perspective. So that there are a number of things that we could do better. And I think one of the things that we've sort of, and I've personally experienced, is sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get to a point. I think we've all been in a situation where 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, we've gone, oh, I wish I'd said that. That would have been really powerful. But with neurodivergent people, sometimes that is more exaggerated. So sometimes, that will happen to me after most conversations. I'm pretty sure I'll go away from today's conversation and say, oh, I wish I'd said that. But the best way to get around that, and the best way to make people feel confident enough to be able to say the right things in the right way, is to make sure when we're having these sort of meetings, or we're having any sort of meeting, that we have an agenda, that's shared ahead of time. There's conversational points, there's context and backgrounds, and that we set up our communications properly to make sure that we do have those aha moments before the event. So it gives everybody the ability to have the confidence to be able to say, I've thought about this, I've processed it in my own way, and this is my opinion. And it makes sure we get to listen to voices in that way.
In the workplaces that you've been in, is there anything else that have been perhaps considered a success of increasing that awareness or sharing that lived experience? Perhaps a lunch and learn, or anything that you've been able to, any successful strategies that you've been a part of in a workplace?
Yeah, I think we've got examples at BT. Absolutely, we've got an absolutely fantastic network called the Able To Network, which is a dedicated group of individuals whose sole responsibility is to make sure that we are setting ourselves up in the right way to support the people who need supporting in the right way, and to make sure that the people who who are setting up things and running the business in a day-to-day way understand the needs of individuals. And that's not just people who are neurodiverse, that's also people like myself who also have a physical disability. So it's the Able To Network is a really strong and powerful network inside BT as a group, and it's a pleasure to be able to contribute and to talk to those guys. Whenever we need anything, there's always a representative that can support, and they do a fantastic job. That one of the sort of the best things that they do. That we use Workplace BT, and within inside there's posts to make awareness. To make awareness really shine at the forefront. And we have multiple days. We follow a days calendar where we have a specific type of condition on a certain day, and there's videos, conversations very similar to this with people within the network. So I think BT is doing a fantastic job of really being able to enable people like myself even to be able to come and speak to you today.
Moving on to the next question that I have written down, you mentioned a physical disability as well, and I'm aware that it was caused by a bit of a life-changing incident in 2020.
Yeah, it's correct, yeah.
So could you explain a little bit about that and how that perhaps might have shaped your perspective on being resilient?
Yeah, no, happy to share. So I fell down the stairs. So it sounds trivial, but it was quite a severe fall. So I went top to bottom. I've been doing some DIY during the day, and it was coming to the end of the day, and as you do get towards the end, you're ready to wrap up quickly. So I was rushing around and went top to bottom. But it was quite a severe. I was at that time I was roughly 24.5 stone. I've lost about 11 stone since then, which I'll get into. But the accident itself was relatively traumatic. It was in the middle of the pandemic, so unfortunately, there was no visitors into the hospital, and I spent just under a month in hospital. Had multiple surgeries. I fractured my ankles and I fractured my back in 3 places, and I've now got more metal in my ankles than I do bone. But it genuinely was a point, and the reason that you described it as life-changing, because it gave me a point to build upon from again. And I think it was also very much timed in what the world of AI was starting to bring out, and the world of data. And there was a period of time where I spent 3 months learning to walk again, and spent a lot of time just sitting, as you can imagine. And I used that time to really start to get a passion, more of a passion. I've been in the industry for 16, 17 years now, and I think taking that time out to be able to read into what's coming ahead, plan ahead, reskill, upskill. And I think it's really important to make sure you're just continually making sure that you're staying up to date with what trends are, what's happening, especially at the moment. But it gave me a perspective which was really helpful, because I started to see, once I did start walking, I walked with a stick, and it gave me a perspective that I hadn't had before. Finding it difficult for parking spaces, for example, and have I got enough space either side, or just be travelling through London with a cane is quite difficult, and I've been pushed or moved aside a couple of times on the underground, and it's been difficult. But I think what it gave me was a perspective on data that I hadn't seen before, and how I can point those two together. And I think actually having that physical disability element, but also having the neurodivergent pattern spotting that I mentioned earlier, was it gave me the ability to go, oh, okay, so we've got an issue there, we've got an issue here, and we've got this data. How can we pull these things together? And that really sparked off with me the accessible AI. So I know that we can talk about AI, we can talk about generative AI, but I really truly specialize and have a big passion for that accessible AI. How do we use that technology to be able to upskill and empower people who traditionally haven't been? There's a lot of focus in the industry, especially around Copilot and Code Whisperer and different elements like that, about how do we make everybody as efficient as possible? How do we increase productivity? But what we haven't really stumbled into as much yet, and I believe we will do massively, is how do we make sure that we don't leave behind people that traditionally feel they may have been left behind already? And I don't think we've got a better opportunity than we've had now to be able to remove barriers that are there. And there's a lot of companies trying to do a lot of stuff. If you take the latest releases from Apple or Samsung, they're in their new iOS and equivalent, predictive text. It's a really fantastic tool when it works, and when it gives you the right words. But what it's started to do now is use AI and use generative AI to be able to predict the word that you've got wrong, and instead of putting the red underline for you to make the manual decision to change that to whatever the word is, it automatically changes that and still keeps the red line. That sounds like a really cool piece of tech to help people who have made a genuine mistake in their spelling. That is a nightmare for me, because now I'm seeing a red line and thinking, I don't know what the real spelling of that is. Is it the right spelling? When you click on it, it disappears, or it gives you a revert button, and then I don't know which one is the right one. So there are efforts towards being inclusive with inside written language from these large tech companies. But I think it's an example and a perfect example of where a company could have reached out to the community, found people within inside the community, and people like myself who could have said that sounds like a great idea, but it might not be. Or you could put a different type of line, a different squiggle, a different colour, and then we've got to think about other elements around colour blindness and all sorts of things. So actually, some of these positive steps moving forward also sometimes move us back as well. So
Well, to enable what you're passionate about with accessible AI, like you say, it requires communication within a community, like you say, connecting the dots. Through your lived experience, you've been able to connect dots between a physical disability, being neurodivergent, and then connecting the dots to almost give AI or technology the prompts needed to assist you. Of course, it always comes back to the human in some sort of way, that they have to inject that data or give that prompt that is necessary to give you the output that you're truly needing. So when it comes to a business that's trying to provide an accessible AI, and like you say, giving the advice of reaching out to a community, what or how do they find those communities? Because someone listening to this interview might be thinking, well, I'd love to reach out to the communities, but how do I find them? Where are they?
Yes,
where are they for you?
It's a great question. I think the answer is that there isn't a specific website you go to and you can find, but there are plenty of people on LinkedIn and different social networks, and people like myself talking at events like these that anybody can reach out to. All of us are very passionate about what we do and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and I think I'm looking forward to being able to have this conversation go out, and anybody can get in contact with me through LinkedIn, absolutely. But I'm also really looking forward to the event itself, where we get the ability to talk in front of as many people as would like to come, and also have the questions and answers and find myself at the after the talk or before. But my advice for anybody who is either looking for help themselves to tell their company that they need support and what support is there, or companies looking to support their staff, is just to do as much research as they can online. So there are, as I said, there isn't a particular website, but there are YouTube videos for people. There are websites that you can go and understand things. But I think it's going to be a lot of trial and error over the next sort of 2 to 3 years. I mean, there's some pioneering people that are building applications to support the different people in different communities. And I think it is so similar to the Wild West at the moment. I think we're trying to work out how we capitalize on as much of this as possible and reach as many people as possible. On that, I've spent a lot of time with different communities as part of their corporate social responsibility programs. We've been out to a school in India, and we've looked at how education works there, and that was a really fulfilling process. I'm also in the middle of developing my own applications that I know that can be used, and I think the real justification behind why I'm doing that is my daughter Alice is also neurodivergent.
Right. So
when teaching her how to read, we both got the words wrong. So that's a really difficult situation to be in. And I think having something like a ChatGPT as an example, but or using a large language model that gives you the ability to take the experience of learning to read, take the traditional books that a child will get from school, and make them dyslexia-friendly language, is fantastic. So I have an app that does that, and it's connected to different libraries and books. So whenever we're reading at home now, I know that the words come through in a way that is friendly. Mm-hmm. So that's really, really good, but it keeps the same context, so you still feel involved in the story. But I think just going back to the question, I think the best thing to do is to reach out to individuals in the community on LinkedIn, different places, and there are plenty of us that are trying to get this story across.
On the other side of the coin, people like yourself and people that are advocating for this sort of stuff, do you feel like perhaps you're one of few advocating for this, or is there a large community? And if you do feel as though you're one of few, how would you encourage others, including perhaps your daughter in future? How would you encourage them to speak out, to be confident in their differences in a workplace, to then be seen, and to enable yourself and others to be seen, which is incredibly important for others to even shape what we want to happen in a positive light? How would you encourage others like your daughter to be seen?
Yeah, I think the community of people who are currently having a platform to talk about things is relatively small. I've only recently started talking about this myself, and I think it is because I have found a mechanism to be able to use the generative AI processes to support myself, and got just so excited about it. The first time, I can still remember the first time I asked ChatGPT to rewrite an email in a more professional manner for me, and it came back in seconds, and everything was spelled right, the grammar was right, there was punctuation in the right places. It was amazing. I think that was an aha moment, I would say, just to go, right, I need to give this to as many people as possible. So I started then using LinkedIn to write posts and start commenting on people's posts and saying, have you tried this? And I did join a few of the ChatGPT or AI groups on LinkedIn, and started to have conversations within those. And actually, I think the more that we talk about it, we'll find that more people use it, and then there'll be more people who get that moment themselves, who might want to start talking about it as well.
Yeah.
I think I've touched on LinkedIn, but there's also YouTube as well, and all the social media platforms that you can use to find opportunities like this to talk, and different platforms. And I think one of the things that I've been really lucky with is working at BT. So BT is a really well placed organisation to be able to talk to such a wide group of people. We've got plenty of partners that work with us that also run their own processes and have their own internal difficulties that have invited me to go and speak to them as well, and so that's really good. So I think the more people that we can talk to, the more people that will start to talk, and it will grow. But I think we need to remember that the AI has been around for a long time now, but the generative AI one is still relatively new to a lot of people, and there are safety concerns, and there are especially around hallucinations and different things like that. And I think once organisations have understood how they are going to use it in a safe way and at an enterprise level, we'll start to see it roll out, and at that point people will start to see it themselves and go, oh, this is fantastic. And then they'll want to start sharing it, and I'm hoping that somebody listening to this can say, well, I'd like to talk about that, and they can always reach out and we can talk about it a little bit more.
I think that would be the best outcome of this interview, is to really encourage and advocate for understanding neurodiversity and how do we apply that to this ever-changing world that we're living in, so that, as you say, people don't get left behind. You also have a mission that I'm aware of that is to improve the world one bite at a time. What does that mean to you?
Yes, I start most LinkedIn posts and end most LinkedIn posts with that. So it's shaping the world one bite at a time, and bite being BY instead of BI. So it's understanding that there is a serious amount of things that we can do by using data. We can take any two data sets and have a look at how they combine and what we can do, and how we can use use cases, and also think of all sorts of amazing things. But that's a really big mission. So it's going to take a lot of people to do a lot of things in the right way to do that. So for me, shaping the world one bite at a time is understanding that there is a huge way to go in how we can help people, and the use of data and AI to be able to do that is really exciting. So that's why I changed it to a BY, so it's a bite of data, a bite of information. So I think that mission is really personal to me, as I mentioned with my daughter and the applications and different things that I'm doing. But it's also a way that businesses can also shape their environments and shape their world. So that's the mission really, is to be able to incrementally make things better, just one bite at a time, because we know that trying to do too much too quickly just doesn't always work out the way we want it to.
And you mentioned that you start and end those LinkedIn posts with that mission in mind. What sort of successes has come out of those LinkedIn posts in particular? Have you had people reach out and learn things from you? What
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge audience at the moment, which is growing all the time. I'm constantly posting, but I think the big stuff's probably still to come, to be honest. But it's great to have interactions and to have those sporadic conversations. And to be honest, I'm not actually that bothered if thousands of people see something. But if we can influence one person or help one person, then that's fantastic. I have had through LinkedIn and conversations internally and externally as well, I have had a number of people approach me and say, I'm not confident to say these to my employer about being neurodivergent, and I've always found if I've done that in the past, then I might be looked at differently or treated differently. And I've had a number of these conversations now where successfully they have gone and spoken to their organisation and said, I am neurodivergent. This is me. I am different, and I would like this support if possible. And it's been a really big success story. Yeah. I think when I, like I said, I've been in the industry for 16, 17 years, and even myself, I wouldn't have disclosed at the beginning. It was definitely a stigma, and I think some of the interviews I had, job interviews, where you'd have to write a presentation or you had to write an example email, for example, especially in the early days, or an example piece of analysis. I spent more time worrying that everything was spelt right than I did on the content, and that was really difficult. But now with the ability to have that taken care of and to be able to have these I know the way that I say it is that it's like having an assistant 24 hours a day that just worries about that for you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about it. I mean, obviously you'll put care and attention into it, but it makes sure that it has that fail-safe element to it.
In your perspective, considering this rapid evolution of AI and democratization of AI and ubiquity of AI, what do you envision the best case scenario and the worst case scenario perhaps of an AI safety and regulation world?
Yeah, I mean, of course we've got to make sure that we're safe. So we've talked really passionately about some of the really cool use cases of it and how I use it in my day-to-day to support myself. But you've always got to remember to stay safe while using these sorts of technologies or any sort of technologies. You know, it's the same as not giving it your bank details, for example, and making sure that you've got safe passwords and making sure there's always a human in the loop. You know, so we don't want to set off anything that's going to go away. And we've all heard of scenarios where that's gone wrong. But I think the best case scenarios that we have the right governance and the right regulations that don't take away any of the creativity elements, but just make sure that we do keep it safe. We do have the ability to work together and collaborate with different organisations to make sure we do get the right governance. And I think that's definitely coming through. And you know, we would love to be part of all of that process. And the people developing AI need to make sure that we have a voice as well. So that, you know, we looked at the consumers and how the consumers like ourselves would use AI, but I think also the way that the developers who build in it can also have a voice in how that regulation is put into place. I think with the worst case, you know, it's not something I think we need to be fearful of. You know, I think what we need to do is have a call to action more than looking at a worst case scenario, and that's just saying let's all work out how we do this and look at how important it is to have regulation, but to have the right regulation and the right controls and at the right time. It's very difficult because regulation always falls behind and technology outpaces regulation in every industry. I think this industry is no different, but potentially has time not on its side. AI is every week I follow multiple people online, and there's always something new coming out, and it's advancing in such a great and creative way, and it's great to be able to see different companies releasing different things at different times and being able to say, well, this one's better than this one has a baseline of this, and it's really, really cool. And I think actually it's a really difficult job for people to start to regulate that, especially, you know, it's a lot of it's open source and there's a lot of stuff. So I think making sure that when governments do look into regulation of AI, that they speak to that developer community, speak to the community, and how should we and how could we keep things safe? Just I'm back on that personal level, just reiterating, don't give it anything that you wouldn't want to give to somebody openly. You know, a lot of the safety protocols are coming. And I was with Google a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking to us about how your data is yours, and actually they will not be using your data to train those language models, which I thought was really cool. But not every single application that you could use will be following those particular ethical processes. And I think, you know, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, the ethics element to it is really important. And that's what's going to be a guidance towards those regulations, is making sure that we do have ethical thought processes as well. You know, making sure that we don't have hate speech in there. We're making sure that we don't have recipes for bombs, for example. We don't have all sorts of different things, and making sure that it's again, human in the loop. Yeah. Absolutely, making sure that we've always got a human element to how we use AI.
Is there anything that you haven't done yet, personally or professionally, that you would love to experience or explore that might be coming up in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I've mentioned, that 2020 was a big change for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, and I think we all share that year, those couple of years. But I think what it's done is it's really sparked a fire underneath what I do and why I do things, and I've talked about loads of this as part of this process. But I think there's two elements I think that I think I really want to achieve now, and I think one of those, again, I mentioned the applications in development and what we're doing. I want to be able to give those out to the world. I want to be able to put as many accessible, friendly AI supportive systems into people's hands as possible, so we really can make sure that we don't leave anybody behind, and we give people the ability to be creative and feel safe and comfortable to do so. And I think we've got some good stuff coming out in the future on that. And I think professionally, I think I want to be able to get into into that corporate world a bit further and make sure we spread and have voices available there. I'd love to say that I was on a management team somewhere, making sure there was a voice in there, making sure that people were were supported. And so I think, personally, I think trying to get applications out to the world and to support as many people as possible, shaping the world one bite at a time, but also doing that professionally as well inside business, inside BT as well. It's a fantastic company, really supportive. We've got support, as I said, with the Able To network. We've also got support across the whole board and the whole management team. I think, let's see if I can get there in a couple of years, and see if I can get there myself. But they're the sort of two things.
Awesome. Is this your first time perhaps speaking at a tech event?
It absolutely is, yeah.
So Big Data and AI World is going to be your first.
It is. I've done a couple of small sort of fireside style chats. I did one recently in July over in Pune, which was fantastic, and there was sort of 200 to 300 people there, and so it was quite good. We did a bit of a Q&A session, and it was nerve-wracking but confident, especially around the topic. And I've done a couple of smaller ones, but no, this is definitely going to be my first official outing, I would say, and I'm very much excited to do that. I'm really excited to show with a presentation. This has been a fantastic chat today. Thank you very much for having me, but I think I'm really looking forward to being able to have the slides behind me, to be able to give some examples. I've got some demonstrations to do. It's going to be really interesting, and I think it might change a lot of people's thought processes. And I'm going to show what we would have done traditionally versus what we can do now, and some of those applications I was talking about. How we can get people more focused and involved and feel like they're part of something. So but I'm sure there'll be many more, and I'm really looking forward to that. So really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, absolute pleasure. And I think, just to anyone watching, this is a great opportunity to say that Chris will be at Big Data and AI World on the 6th and 7th of March 2024 at Excel London Big Data and AI World. Tickets are free, so this is a fantastic opportunity to really get into the nitty-gritty of what Chris is going to be talking about, even get to meet Chris yourself, and to connect and really talk about these really important issues right now. Because, like you say, there's a bit of a time limit on these issues of AI, and we've got to get it right. So I would say come along and get involved with Chris for sure.
Thank you very much.